Holly,
Hi.
how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Awesome. Thanks so much for seeing me tonight.
Well, thank you so much for having me tonight. I
All right.
deeply appreciate it. This is great. I'm humbled. Thank you for the
Oh,
privilege.
yeah, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hey, Gunter, you be a good boy, okay? Good boy. All right. All right. All right. You're looking all around, huh? Ah, looking to see what's going on, huh? That's it. All right. All right. Already. Woo. Ayin Thropos here with another exciting episode of You Don't Know. You don't know, huh? So don't act like you do. With us this evening, we have Holly Baglio, who is an experiencer of some dark things, but there's a positive message to all of this, and we'd like to welcome her to the show. Holly, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Just
Ayin,
fine.
right?
Yeah, Ayin. Mm-hmm.
Ayin. Sweet.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. All right, so we're here with Holly Baglio. And where are you from, Holly?
Long Valley, New Jersey.
Long Valley, New Jersey. Awesome, on the East Coast, huh?
Yes.
Wow. Well, you look great tonight, and you're ready to share your story with us.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you
Awesome.
very much.
Well, I've got a couple of friends that I think that we have in common. I'm on a KJ Scoops little group that we keep each other advised about a lot of things. And so, Dave Morrow.
Yes, I do. KJ and David Morrow. Yes, they're
And
great. They're sweetheart.
and Tara, do you know Tara?
Oh, I adore Tara very much. Yes.
She was on my show last week.
I saw that show.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Now, Holly, everything that we talk about on here is just very serious and everything, but your story especially is, um, I don't know the whole story, but I want to let you lead the way. And let me just ask you this: these there's been some programs that are run by the military or something like this. Is this some type of program that you've been involved in?
Yes. Similar to Tara Oglet, I'm from Project Ibis.
Okay.
So, as far as what I can remember, it was my government and my military that did this to me, and I was a part of their project.
Okay. Now, we've heard of Project Ibis before, I believe, with Max Spiers. He talked about that, didn't he?
I believe so, yes. My
And
prayers, Max Spiers and his loved ones.
yeah, we lost him almost, I guess it was almost 2 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, July 2016.
Yeah. I remember that day well. I had kind of been following him on and off, and then I had started following him again, and his testimony and everything had really heated up, and was really starting to go somewhere. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, I hope this isn't too dangerous, So
Absolutely. I hope people don't forget his testimony.
yeah, I don't think he will soon be forgotten. And so, is this Project Ibis, is this something that is run by DARPA or the American military, or is it hard to know?
I really don't know. I've had to do a lot of research and studies just to figure out what happened to me. I believe it is the military industrial complex that did this to me. I believe it originated with my grandfather because he was in the Navy in World War II. a minesweeper ship. And he would come home and tell my grandmother all the time how the military would give him and the other soldiers on the boat LSD and marijuana just to see what it would do. So I believe he was an unknowing candidate for human experimentation. And also through research and studies, I've learned that on minesweeper ships, such as the one my grandfather was on in the Navy, that has been used in the Philadelphia experiment. So I believe I was trapped all my life, starting with my grandfather. And that's how I was brought into these black projects in the underground military bases. For me, I was in Project Ibis up in Nelson, Canada. However, I also remember being in an underground military base as a small child. And at the time I was living in San Antonio, Texas, so it was an underground military base out in that region. I also remember being in Montauk, New York. I believe that they call that Camp Hero. Yes?
Yes.
Montauk. I remember trying to escape out there with a few other children, but sadly we were caught just as we got to the surface out of the tunnel and out into the parking lot. We got to the surface. And as soon as our heads popped out of the grate, it seemed that the military lab coats came out to the parking lot and looked at us kids and brought us back in and down into the tunnels again. So it was just my entire life. I grew up like stuff I thought every kid went through what I went through. It was only the past 3 years that I woke up and I had a flood of memories come back, and I realized that this is not normal. This is not what every kid goes through, and I need to speak up about it because it's still ongoing.
Still ongoing. Now, did the memories? Had you been interested in this subject before, and you maybe had researched this stuff, or did you start having the memories, and then that made you want to research it?
Well, I had the memories come back to me sporadically through my life, such as when I was 18 years old. And I didn't know what was happening to me. I didn't know what to look up. And when I turned to friends and church members and even a couple family members, they had all the wrong answers for me and basically turned me away and told me I was evil. It was all in my head. And I wasn't right. But I forget the second part of your question. Forgive me.
Well, we know that you've had to research a lot of these things to rediscover some of these things, and I was just wondering if you had started researching it first, or was it the memories that spawned you to spurred you to start researching it? And you indicated,
about 3-4 years ago, I had another flood of memories come forward, and I just started looking up subjects such as angels and demons on YouTube.com. And I bumped into Jordan Maxwell, and I bumped into evangelists. So I was looking at different extremes, and I was looking up all sorts of things. But then I came across the topic of super soldiers. And I thought to myself, well, what's a super soldier, and what's the difference between that and a normal soldier? I would just think a soldier is super because they're a soldier, period. But I ended up stumbling onto Michael Prince and Commander Casblot and Aaron McCollum and a few other testimonies, such as David John Marrow. And that's when I realized that in some of their stories they had the same memories as I had. And I remember these people, and I have remembered these people when they were small children going through these projects. And here I am, 40 years old, 3 years ago, on YouTube.com, and I bumped into their testimony. And I was just blown away because I have remembered these people, and I remember the same things, and it's taken a lot to come to terms with.
I'll bet it really has. So it sounds like some of these memories you've been having even as early as 18 years old, you started remembering some of these things that had happened.
Yes.
And a lot of the things that you mentioned at the very beginning, for instance, Montauk and Project Ibis and stuff like this. I mean, these are the ones that a lot of researchers and people that are interested in this subject know about. And so, gosh, you've been in the hard, you've been in through the worst stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm finding out and researching.
Wow.
Life can be difficult, but thank heavens for people like Tara and David. I have someone to turn to and people to counsel me and minister to me and help me through
That's awesome.
my recovery. So.
Yeah, it's a great support group for you. And let me tell you, I'm a friend of Tara's, and I'm also kind of a recent client of hers, because we know that she has, a psychic medium abilities.
Yes, she does.
Yeah, and it's very real, very real. And I've been blown away by the information that she's able to come up with and everything. And so we see that a lot of these children are put into this because their father or grandfather was in the military or in the intelligence agencies or something like this. And also a lot of times these children have special gifts, special abilities. And do you have any type? I've found through my experience that all in all with like psychic type stuff, women seem to be have the gift much more than men. You agree with that?
It depends, but yeah, I would agree with that for the most part, yes.
Do you have any of these abilities like what Tara has?
Her abilities are very sharp and profound, and like I said, I just woke up, so I'm new to a lot of things, but yes, I do have some abilities. I have dreams that come true. Oh boy. I have a few gifts. I don't really know how to explain them right now.
That's fine. That was just one small question I had for you. And these children were experimented on, and so it's really amazing that you're even alive, isn't it?
Yes. My life feels very surreal. I'm grateful to be alive. And when I look back on my memories, I can't believe that I'm sitting here breathing right now. It doesn't seem possible to me. I feel like I'm on a different timeline. I can't believe I'm here right now.
Wow. Yeah.
So.
It's a very interesting time. So many things are changing in the world.
Yes. Oh, and very quickly.
Yeah. I've been into these conspiracy theories ever since before they even had coined the term. I mean, since I was a child, really. And I don't know what drew me to it. But, you learn real quick that trying to bring these bring these observations and stuff to others doesn't make you very popular or well liked or anything. And it is ironic now that after 9/11 and so many other things, even this last presidential election, anyone who doesn't see that there is some type of conspiracy going on has their head in the sand. Yeah.
Yeah.
They really
absolutely.
do. And they're not stupid or not necessarily stupid. I've come far enough to realize that there's almost some type of matrix-like aspect of this thing where people, it may go against their programming or something to even look at these things,
Yeah, sometimes that's what happens too. You're programmed not to see the truth. It's almost as if you're in a trance. But for me, I couldn't ignore it, and thank heavens those memories kept seeping through, because that gave me a chance to break programming and really see the truth for what it was, especially with 9/11.
Yeah, that really helped. And just now kind of thinking this, it's just an idea just popped in my head. What if, of the myriad of reasons that there was for 911, what if one of them was to wait or trigger people or some, you know what I mean, to people who had been through some experiences, maybe?
Yes, when I went through 9/11, I was triggered to run home and start protecting my home. For me, it triggered me to know that it was the end times and last days. It was for me to know that something was wrong in the world. Evil powers had taken over and are running amok, and it's time to go home and take care of my home and my family, because we're at that point in time. That's how I felt when I reacted to 9/11. So.
Now, where did you come home from?
Well, at the time, I always grew up in Far Hills, New Jersey. My grandparents raised me, but I was staying in Staten Island, New York. And the day that when 9/11 came around, I was driving across the Bayonne Bridge when I saw smoke coming out of the first tower of the World Trade Center.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, and I remember thinking to myself, how are these firemen going to get to the top of that tower to put out the fire? So when I had got back into Jersey, I had an appointment, and when I got out of the appointment at about 11 a.m., I then heard that planes had crashed in the whole 9 yards, and I thought to myself, oh my gosh, it was just on the Bayonne Bridge. So I rushed home, I got back to my grandmother, and I saw what was happening on the news, and that was it. I just made sure I stayed home from that point on. Always just stay home.
Now, Holly, you mentioned a little bit earlier that, the experiences that you'd gone through, but then you said that it's still ongoing. What is it that's still ongoing?
I believe these projects, such as Project Ibis, are still ongoing. They're still happening to our children. Children are still being locked in a cage and tortured and traumatized, and going through projects such as Max Spiers describes in his testimonies, and I'd like to see them stop.
You'd like to see them stopped?
Yes.
I understand. Yeah, I think we all would like to see that stop. And so, but is it still ongoing for you? In other words, are they still checking up on you or anything like that?
Oh, for me, as far as in my perspective, inactive. I've been told I'm still monitored 24/7, but I live a quiet, reclusive life. I'm out in the boondocks. I pretty much keep to myself. The only connection I have to the outside world is my internet.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I'm quiet, and that's it. So I hope to never go back to the super soldier lifestyle or engage in it again. But I don't know.
Yeah. Well, is there some danger that by coming out and giving your testimony that you'll somehow become targeted again?
Yes, but I don't think about it.
Right.
I don't think about those dangers, to be honest. But yes, the realities are that I'll be targeted again. I have had a couple death threats prior, not through the internet. They were outside of the internet. So, but I just don't think about it. I think people need to be aware of what's happening, what the government is doing with their tax dollars. When kids are kidnapped, what really does happen to them. When they're being trafficked, what happens. And it's within everyone's reach to do something to stop it. So
it really is. Even here in Texas, we have what's called Children's Protected Services, and it's anything but. I mean, it is just shameful that they have people who are agents whatever, social workers for this Children's Protected Services, whose job is literally to tear children away from their parents in their homes, just for small stuff. Like maybe that they had mom and dad got in a fight or something, or somebody, you know what I mean? That's terrible to have domestic abuse, but how's it going to make it better to take a child away from their home? It's just reprehensible.
Exactly. And a child that is really being abused in a home, they leave that child in that home. They don't protect it. So I think, what did my grandmother used to call child protective services? Here in New Jersey, we call it DIFUS. But my grandmother used to call it by some German name. I can't remember, forgive me.
Yeah, well, and it just gets worse because now we're finding out that a lot of times when they're put in foster care, they hire pedophiles to be these foster parents. I mean, it's just unfucking believable.
Yes. Yes, or the foster parents are just handlers and they turn children over to these MK Ultra mind control projects just to become Manchurian candidates. So it's not safe. It's a scary world out there.
It really is. It really is. And these quote unquote lone gunman scenarios that has happened on a lot of these attacks. I don't believe any of that crap. These are concerted efforts that are put together by agencies and stuff. And so you can only, shudder to think some of these young men that have been accused of this stuff, what type of, mind control they've been through.
Absolutely. I agree with you. They have been through mind control. Even in that Florida shooting, I heard something that the FBI and the police had visited the kid approximately 30 times and were basically coaxing him into believing that he was going to be a shooter of some type. But I believe that all of those events are setups. They're put together and they're orchestrated for a certain agenda. And the shooters are just Manchurian candidates. They're other mind control slaves.
Yeah, or they're not even real to begin with. I mean, Sandy Hook wasn't even a school. I mean, it wasn't even, operating. And then a lot of these things we're finding out, I found out from Ole Demigard, and I had not heard about this before, but I interviewed him a few weeks ago. Many of these attacks happened while they're doing a drill for an exact type of attack. I mean, how ridiculous can it be, and they even announce when these drills are going to be, and then it's so it's just it's not hard to pull the wool over the eyes of the sheeple. They don't want to hear it. And
it keeps people living in fear and relying on the government, and the government is the one causing the problem, and now they're going to try to sell everyone a solution.
Yeah, and I've been kind of vocal about that because after these attacks, different people will get on Facebook and they'll argue to and for against gun control, and I'll get kicked right out of the conversation because I'll say, wait, let's talk about the real issue. Let's talk about that these things are set up and that the government is doing it. No one wants to talk about that.
Of course not. And that's getting to the root of the problem. People just want to look at an issue and put a Band-Aid on it and it's all done and walk away. And we really need to get to the root of the problem to really solve anything.
Right. And they're scared. It's because they're scared. People are not stupid. People are not dumb. Everyone pretty much has an idea about what's going on. But the will of the people, they're nothing without us. They can't even, not only as people and everything, but just in the market. I believe, you can't have a military without the market. You can't have religion. You can't have all of these things without, people out there working hard every day, And so it's all about us, And then when you look at also these alien questions and narratives and stuff like that, well, why the hell are they so interested in us if we're so weak and powerless and worthless, huh? What the hell do they want with us, huh? It don't add up. It don't add up at all. We're the ones who got the power. And so that's my message. I want to, empower people so we can stand up and fight against this stuff.
Absolutely. We have to. But we have the power and authority within us.
You're absolutely right. The human being is a kick-ass deal. And so I despise all anti-human narratives. You see so many people on Facebook or whatever, different groups and stuff saying, oh, we're so bad. The aliens are so smart. They're trying to shepherd us. Bullshit.
No.
They're fucking rotten. And I'm not even convinced. I'm not even convinced. I think that most of them, or at least 99% of them, are not physical like us. It's some type of astral. They're some kind of demons or something like that.
That's what I feel too, or interdimensional.
Yeah.
And most of my dealings with them have always been terror. I've always left in fear. I've always been frightened. So
that's their food. That's what they want. They want us to be scared so that they can get that fear off of us somehow. So now you brought up an interesting subject. Have you actually seen an alien or interacted with one?
Yes, little gray aliens,
Oh my God.
reptilians, I believe draconians, and some other species I wouldn't even know how to describe or explain to you to know what they were. Um, but yes, I've had interaction with different species of aliens.
Wow. So have you seen an actual reptilian?
Yes, that was uh, it was approximately 9 feet tall, and the upper half looked humanoid, like a human body, and the bottom half looked like a snake. It smelled really bad. It looked like what you would see that is depicted on the ancient Egyptian pyramids, where it's half human and half snake. I've seen one of those before, a reptilian.
So did it have legs, or was it just kind of standing on its tail like a cobra or something?
Standing on its tail like a cobra. The bottom half was a snake.
Wow. What was it wearing? Any clothes?
I guess you'd call it that.
Like a robe or
I
something, or
I was a small young child when I had an experience with this reptilian, so I would say it was wearing something. I guess you would call it clothes, but the thing was very hideous looking and scary looking, so I didn't. It's hard for me to remember a lot of detail.
was it trying to scare you? Do you think, or was it aware of the effect that it had on you, that you were in terror?
Yes, it was aware of the effect that it had on me, but it didn't matter because me and the other children were subject to this reptilian and what it was doing and what it was showing us. So
What was it showing you?
this is going to sound fantastical. When I was a small child, me and a few other children were taken to Saturn, and we were brought around these reptilians. And when we were up there, I remember this reptilian bringing the group of us children around a tree, and from the tree hung dead people for cables. And the reptilians had used this tree with the dead people hanging from it as some sort of weapon. My memories are fragmented, so I wouldn't be able to tell you that much more. I know that while we were up there on Saturn, the reptilians had a bedroom made up for me, the same as the bedroom that I had here on Earth. And when they returned me and the other children back to Earth, I was approximately 6 or 7 years old, and I had problems speaking. And my grandmother had to teach me how to form certain words all over because I was in complete terror. I was terrorized and frightened by what had happened.
I'll
So,
bet. So in other words, the other adults that knew you when you were 6 or 7 years old, you would be kind of just scared of anything, a loud noise, or you would be very shy and you didn't want to speak to people.
yes, I was easily startled, and yes, I didn't want to speak to people. I was always either wrong or they didn't believe me. So I was told, the little gray alien in my room was always a bad dream. So when you hear that it's a bad dream enough times, you stop saying, hey, this thing is frightening me.
Uh huh.
I did try to speak about it, but
Right, you're powerless. You're a child, and we're just so directed at that age. Do you suspect at this time, at your age now, do you suspect that anyone in your family had maybe had similar experiences?
yes, I think my grandfather and my grandmother both had similar experiences. I think my grandmother had psychic abilities. Things would just come to her. She would just know things about somebody else without being told. It would just come to her. Um, I drew a blank. Forgive me. What
Yeah,
is your
no,
question again? I'm sorry.
no, don't even worry about that. This is, it's a heart wrenching, but at the same time, it's fascinating. Hearing about these experiences. You know, we often hear this type of thing happens in bloodlines. You know, and speaking of blood, do you know what blood type you have?
No, I'm very curious and I would like to know. I do not. I don't know anything about my background or my bloodlines or too much about my family history, aside from the fact my grandfather was Polish, my grandmother was German, and my father, who's deceased, was Sicilian. So,
So it
other than
sounds like a
that, I
lot
don't
of
know.
Germanic and Italian. You know, basically all European type of bloodlines.
Yes.
Fascinating. Yeah, you know, a lot of stuff had been coming out about this type O negative, you know, bloodline we hear so much about. And a lady I was seeing, I don't know what her interest was, but we sent off for one of these tests, you know.
I want to do
And
that.
yeah, and anyway, I already knew what it was going to be, you know, before we did the test, right? I mean, you know, so yes, I am type O negative, and it whatever that means, you know, universal donor. In other words, supposedly anybody can take my blood in a blood transfusion, but yet I can only get a blood transfusion from somebody who's type O negative, like myself.
Wow, that's
So
very rare.
yeah, I think it's like about 6% of the population or something like that, or less. So I don't know what that's all about, but we hear a lot about it these days. Lots of narratives going on these days. You know,
Yes.
this, you know, I want to know more about this gray alien or entity or whatever it was that you interacted with. Have you interacted? Have you seen these just once, or have you seen that grays more than once?
I've interacted with little grays a lot more than once. They used to terrorize me all the time as a small child when I would go to sleep at night. I was always scared of them, but because also I had undergone programming and projects in underground bases, I remember also being a small child and them using a holographic image of a little gray alien at night in my room. And that was just to reinforce the programming that I was going through. Because being in those underground bases, you do have interaction with little gray aliens and reptilians and other alien races. And you have to get used to that. Those things are frightening to look at. So, but when I was a small child, I remember they would always terrorize me. But when I was in my teenage years, finally there came a point in time when they stopped terrorizing me. And I remember they started to show me how they would fly their aircraft. So then it almost seemed that the tables turned, and then they started to show me things and train me in things. So,
That's fascinating. You know, it's almost I'm not like I don't know, the Stockholm syndrome or something. In other words,
yeah.
you know, even I just can't think of a good parallel, but you know, the children that were maybe kid, or I don't want to say anything, you know, give the wrong idea, but like with American Indians, you know, sometimes people got captured and stuff like this. Well, even though they were treated very badly, ultimately they were given, you know, at least a job to do, you know, within the tribe. You know, you can't have somebody just sitting around. And
Yes.
so it seems like they wanted to get some fear off of you, but then they were maybe putting you as a candidate for someone who could be used to help them in some way.
I think so too. And I think that was a good way to explain it because I had Stockholm Syndrome with Joseph Mangley when I first woke up with some of my memories because I recall him from being a small child all the way up through these projects. And the last time I recall seeing Joseph Mangley was in 2008. So as far as I know, he's still alive and well.
Fucking
But
unreal. That's amazing.
I had to get past Stockholm Syndrome with Joseph Mangley. So
Was
because
he
he
always mean or was he
placed me,
sometimes nice? Was he always
um, I would say that he was nice. I have half my memories are really bad of him, but the other half of the memories are good, where he was really nice. And that's hard to say over a man that used to be known as the angel of death in World War II. So,
did he have a name that you knew him by aside from Dr. Mengele?
Well, my nickname for him was Joe the Mechanic, but other than that, I always knew him as Joseph Magley.
Okay, because there's been some other experiencers like Stuart Swerdlow and stuff like that knew him as like maybe Dr. Green or Dr. White or some innocuous named after a color.
Green.
Oh,
yes,
you've heard that
Dr.
before?
Green.
Dr. Green.
I've heard of Dr. Green before, yes.
Wow.
But I used to call him Joe the Mechanic, so he was nice to me. So.
Sometimes he was.
Yeah.
Yeah. What, without triggering you too much, and just what type is it just every type of torture you can imagine? Is that what it was, like sleep deprivation and everything else, or?
Definitely sleep deprivation. I remember being locked in a cage. That's where I slept. But that's also where they would electrocute us. So I remember being electrocuted multiple times along with the other children.
Jesus fucking Christ.
I remember also the adults raping me and the other children. So that was another project.
And when you say adults, are you talking about men?
Yes. Once in a blue moon, there were women there, but mainly it was men that I recall. So I remember them drowning other children, witnessing that. I remember witnessing them murdering other children in front of us. And I also remember them forcing us children to fight against each other. But I do remember some of us children also being friends and having friendships. But
is it possible?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, is it possible if you saw one of these children today that had somehow survived this like you have, that you would maybe not recognize them, but at least somehow know them? Or
yeah, I recognize David from these projects.
David Morrow?
Yeah, I remember David John Mayer from these projects. I remember him as a child, as well as when we became older, being sent on a couple of assignments and missions. Yes, and he helps me with my recovery. I consider David John Mayer a good, dear friend of mine. But yes, I do remember growing up with him through the different years and going through the projects, as well as Aaron McCullum and Michael Prince and Kieran Lee Parents. So I remember a few children.
Did you say Michael's last name again? Michael who?
Michael Prince.
James Casblot? Is that?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. I understand. Yeah.
Sorry.
Commander Casblot. Okay. Yeah. Right.
Commander Casblot. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Obviously, I know who he is. The audience knows who he is and stuff like this. And unfortunately, he's locked up right now in England. Is that right?
Yes, he is. I wrote to him a few times, but he's locked up. I hope that upon his release at some point, I may have the privilege of having a video call with him. But we'll see what happens in the future. But either way, I wish him the best.
Right.
But I remember him as a small child as well.
It's the most fascinating thing about his story is that many people might try to discount what he's saying because it's so incredible. But yet he got married to and had a child with this woman whose father is unbelievably influential, powerful, rich, all those things. In fact, he's in charge of the Gerald Ford Foundation, which I don't know what the name of it is, but I've looked into this. I'm like, oh my God. I mean, this stuff is absolutely real, and so he had a beautiful child with that lady, and then it sounds like they kind of knew how to push his buttons and got him to do some stuff that was illegal, and so that they had an excuse to lock him up.
Yeah.
Fascinating. And I've also heard reports from him, or in one of these interviews, how he had met with Max Spiers in San Antonio, and also Sarah Adams.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm right here in Austin, Texas. I'm about an hour and a half from San Antonio.
Nice.
Yeah,
Texas is beautiful.
it's kick ass. It's kick ass. And let me tell you, we just started a new organization called Bases Texas, and
Nice.
we have the blessings of Miles Johnston to do that, because the Bases project is unfortunately going under, and Miles Johnston is giving up. His sister recently died, and he feels like she was assassinated. And
I heard that. My condolences to Miles and his family, and my prayers for his sister. That is so sad to hear. I'm so sorry.
I know it. My condolences as well. And I'm a very big fan of Miles, and I'll tell you what, he's a tough son of a bitch. He really is.
Yes.
And if he's got his reasons for laying it down, then they're good ones, And I told him what my idea was to try to continue the thing, and he gave me his blessings on that, and so we're pleased about that.
Well, bless you in your endeavors. I hope that it happens and you take over.
It's already happened. We've already got multiple websites, and our websites for Bases Texas are already being attacked on a daily basis. We had 20,
I bet.
Yeah.
Have fun with the trolls.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, I've already had a little fun with them. It was on my very first interview, which was for the Leak Project. There was a lady coming forth and saying that I was a homeless person in Austin who was not only a methamphetamine addict, but also a heroin addict. And I was homeless living, over here on the drag. And I thought, well, that was rude, and maybe she has a mistaken identity, but she kept coming back every day to add something. I'm like, hold on a second. I wasn't born yesterday. I'm in the security industry, and somebody has to get paid money to do that. Even the like an organic troll or somebody who's just a hater, they're not going to do that.
Exactly.
And so from the very first, interview I had, I started picking up trolls.
Wow. That means you're doing something right.
That's right. It does. And now here I am interviewing you, right? Getting this story and bringing it to the people. And so, yeah, I think we're on the right path. And I really like what you said about that when I asked you if you're putting yourself in danger by doing these interviews and stuff like this, and you said you just don't think about it. I think that's fucking awesome, because we kind of control our own realities. You know what I mean? I don't understand it. There's some Matrix-like aspect to it. But, two people could do the same thing, to have the same actions, and one person could just almost be crucified for it, and the other person get away with it. And a lot of it has to do on how they perceive it, I think. It's not so much, what we do, it's how we think about what we do. We have a creative aspect somehow, and that's what they don't want us to know, how kick-ass we are.
Absolutely.
And it just doesn't make sense that they would have a bunch of kids in cages and stuff just so a bunch of pedophiles could be mean and do all this stuff, and why the military behind it and everything like that. So there's some type of science, albeit sick and perverted, but there's some type of science behind this. They're getting something out of it.
Yes, they're masterminds. They know how to maneuver, operate the brain, and rewire the brain and manipulate it so they can have ultimate control over a human. I think that's what they're getting at. But
yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that. And I was going to ask you about these horrendous, tales that we've heard of children actually being killed in front of other children. Just in other words, whatever the numbers are to, increase the fear or the trauma. And I just can't imagine anything, worse than that. I've seen a few horror movies, and being a child and being raped, and then also having other children killed in front of you, even possibly by wild animals or something like that. It's just, there's no getting over that.
No, it's hard. Very hard.
I'll bet. Has it led to some difficulties in your life as far as and I'm not talking about trying hard to hold down a job and just normal, interacting with people on a normal
Well, yeah, actually, I'd have to say I woke up 3 years ago, and when I first woke up, I lost my ability to speak for 9 months, and so that was a struggle to start talking again. I completely fell to pieces. But then I started to do well. My life was going well, but then the past year, I seem to have sunk to a low. The pain of what I went through surfaced. The bad things that I had done in my life and seen in my life had surfaced, and I ended up turning to a bottle of alcohol to run away from all of that and to numb the pain, and also to numb some of my spiritual gifts, such as my dreams coming true and certain things. It was almost like I was running away and hiding from everything. And then, of course, when I would have to talk to somebody, such as a loved one, it seemed that I would lash out at them and treat them in an unfair way and in a way that they didn't deserve to be spoken to. And even Taylor Allwood had to help me realize some of the destructive behavior that I was having when some of the programming would rear its ugly head. But I'm doing much better the past 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So back on the wagon, as they say, and doing much better. And life is getting easier, but it's a struggle because it doesn't go away. And I don't always know how to handle it. I stumble and fall. I'm human. I'm a sinner. I'm just like the next person. Sometimes I crumble from the weight. But I do use my faith to help me get through. But sometimes I still stumble and fall.
I understand, yeah. And let me tell you, you must be doing something right because there is a really good. I'm not psychic or anything like that, but there's a really good energy, coming off of you right now. And so I feel like, I mean, do you feel like you're in a good place right now in this
Yes,
moment?
I do.
Cool.
Actually, I do very much. I feel that the place that I am in right now is a very good place, and I haven't been here in a year. Actually, probably a little bit longer. So life is definitely a lot better. And tonight's a great night. I'm really enjoying talking to you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Hey,
I
thank you.
appreciate it.
Wow.
I love your work too, by the way.
Thank
I
you.
did research on you, and I've been watching your videos. So you're a great
Oh.
host, and I love your channel. I love the conversations you get going with people, and how you bring out their testimony and you just sit back and engage with them a conversation. I love it. You're
Yeah,
great.
thank you.
Hey,
Thank you so
Taylor,
much.
you're
Thank
great.
you so much. And let me tell you, this right here is shaping up to be one of the best interviews ever. I mean, really, I'm really amazed at this story and your testimony. Now, you're telling me
Thank
that
you.
within the last 3 years, there was a time that you didn't talk to human beings for like 9 months?
Well, I tried to, but I couldn't hold a sentence in my mind. I forget about a paragraph. I couldn't hold a thought in my mind. I have dogs. The way I would command my dog, like, keeper, come here, sit down, lay down. That would be the most it could get out was like 1 or 2 words. I would have trouble saying a whole sentence. I was very choppy. Um, that's when I started actually drawing pictures. I got Crayola crayons, and when I had trouble talking, I would just draw a picture. Or like if I had a dream, I would wake up and I would draw the dream in crayons and try to talk about it. I could sit there and type my thoughts and what I was thinking, but to actually speak words was very difficult. So it took me about 9 months.
And this is within
Nine,
the last 3 years as an adult,
yes,
wow,
since January 2015 as an adult, yes.
wow.
So I actually stayed with my attorney for 6 of those months that I couldn't speak. So
That's
he was
great.
a
You
great
really,
help for me.
he sounds like a saint. Um,
Yes.
that's good. I myself have spent some time in cages, and not as a child, and not because somebody kidnapped me and put me in a cage, but just because of my own actions and my problems with interacting with the world and stuff like this. And so and then also there's been times throughout the being in trouble with the law and stuff like that that they made me go to maybe out treatment stuff like this. So have you ever been in like some rehab, like drug or alcohol program, or any type of a mental institution or anything like that?
Yeah, actually, I have. I've gone through. all of that in my life, because years ago I used to be on pain management pills, and when I was going to doctors, I used to go to AA type of counseling because I was on addictive medications. But the last time I was actually in a mental ward was December 2014, when I started to wake up and realize I was a super soldier, and the memories came back, and I found the other children, just David John Marrow, Commander James Casblot, and a few others. I melted down in my mind. I had trouble sleeping, and so much in my mind that I signed myself into mental ward. I was there for 6 days. But as soon as I started eating and sleeping, again, they let me out. So I was there.
That's so good.
But yeah, I thought there was something desperately wrong with me, and I wanted to know, and it turned out to be spiritually what my ailments related to me spiritually, and what was going on with my past. So it wasn't that I was mentally ill, so that was good to find out. Sorry.
What are you doing, Gunter? Come here, buddy. Oh, you're such a creature. Oh, you're such a creature.
Oh, what a cutie.
Oh. You like being on TV, don't you, buddy? Oh, you're such a good boy. Oh. He's such a little character. No, you can't go on the couch, buddy. You know you can't go on the couch. I guess he's my little kind of therapy dog, I guess.
He's cute. Yeah, I have a dog and cat myself. I'd be lost without them.
I saw your cat just a second ago, just hanging out right behind you on that dresser.
Yeah.
A gray cat.
Yep. She's got a little cubby hole and food up there. So.
That's awesome.
I'm jealous.
Oh, well, maybe I shouldn't have done that.
No, that's fine. I just don't have anything to drink, otherwise I'd join you.
All right. Yeah, I don't, that dang, AA, it may have helped some people. I despise that fucking program. I can't.
Yeah.
The philosophy alone is just so fucked up. It's like, you admitted that you were powerless. Right there. What? You need to admit that you're powerless? Fuck that, huh? Fuck those motherfuckers.
Right?
I ain't trying to hear about that shit. Admitted that you're powerless. Fuck that, huh?
When I went to quit my pain pills and stuff, I basically just took medicinal marijuana, my Holy Bible, and I locked myself in my house for 6 months until I came off all the pills. And I white-knuckled it, and I had to go through it a couple of times. But I finally came off of them. I found a better way, and it wasn't through AA or NA or any of that crap or those meetings. But I went to their counseling because these doctors always want you to go through counseling and go see a psychiatrist and go here and go there, and they all got suggestions, and they all want you to do their suggestions so they can feel better about your health because you're listening to them. And, yeah.
Fuck that, man.
Yeah, no.
What a lot of people don't realize is that if I were to say, okay, what is a cop? Describe a cop to me. They would describe a man in a uniform or a woman in a uniform with a blue, uniform or something like this with a gun and everything. Those aren't the cops. Those are not the cops. Are those guys in the white lab coats, the doctor this, doctor that, the psychiatrist and shit like that. Those are the cops. Because if your political ideas or agenda get too extreme or something like that, guess what? They're going to find out you're crazy, and they don't need a warrant or anything else like that. All the doctors just got to say, "This motherfucker's crazy, huh?" And that's it.
Yeah, and that's frightening.
Oh, it's sick. And then like Dr. Wilhelm Reich, who discovered orgone and all this stuff, and then they put him in a mental institution and fried his brains with electrotherapy, electroshock therapy. And they still, I think that is still allowed. Is it not that they still do electroshock therapy to people?
I hear it's still allowed. I thought it was still allowed. At that stroke take, at that
That
stroke
is, there's
anesthesia
no
suite,
fucking reason to put electricity on a person. It's
not
just
at all.
fucking sick. And the motherfuckers that do that, they got to know that they're a fucking piece of shit. That's it. That's what they got to
Yeah,
know. Because I'm calling them out right now, man. Fuck those bastards.
absolutely. I remember when I was a young girl, I was 18, and I was in a mental hospital for a week. Long story I don't want to get into right now. But there were a couple of patients receiving electric shock therapy, and they would come back in a wheelchair, and they would just sit there
Oh
and
my
shake,
god.
shake, and
Oh my
broke
god.
on themselves. And it took like 2 or 3 days for them to finally come out of that and start
Jesus.
talking again and eating. And that was no therapy. It didn't seem to make them better. It seemed to make them worse. Not to mention they were given cups full of pills every 4 hours of the day. So that's no way to live. That's not helping any problem.
It's really not. You just
No.
can't. You just makes you wonder how these people even sleep at night. Even the guards or the nurses and all this stuff. I mean, they got to. I don't know if they're sitting there saying, "Well, thank God it's not me." I just don't know what they're thinking. It's they must have become desensitized to it as well.
I think that you have to be desensitized to it to sit there and watch these patients go through it time and time and time again and not have any feelings sort of towards it, you know?
Right. When you were describing earlier and I asked you about, these rape that was going on, if it was mostly men that were doing it, and you said yes, and I was going to ask you, did they somehow sadistically enjoy this? But that's a stupid question because we all know because of physiology that the man cannot get an erection unless they're somehow turned on or whatever by what's going on, and it's just fucking sick.
Yeah.
It's unfucking believable. What
Yeah.
and no, not making excuses for them at all, but they must have been put through something to make them so sick. I mean, why it doesn't? It's incomprehensible why someone would even want to be aroused by a child. It's beyond imagination.
Exactly. And that's grotesque to me. I can't imagine. I can't fathom that.
Yeah,
A
I
child,
can't either.
child.
You know, it's it's incomprehensible.
Mm-hmm. It is. And it's usually people in power that are pedophiles.
Right, and I think that I don't necessarily think they find pedophiles and put them in power. I think they corrupt them as they go along, and I don't know if they, get them started on maybe prostitutes and then they move them to, I don't know, transsexuals or something, and next thing you know, they're fucking dogs and cats. I don't know how that shit works.
It's probably what you said. It probably goes along those lines. As they move up in their career, they're exposed to more things and they're expected to engage in it because that's who they're around.
Right,
That's,
and they give them lots of dope or something, or maybe pills,
yeah,
something to fuck their mind up. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm sure there's a process. They go by a playbook, and I don't know, how it works. It's incomprehensible. But they're not going to let anybody but the sickest of the sick get to certain levels.
Yep.
And have you heard about the Franklin scandal?
That sounds familiar to me. Forgive
Well,
me.
in this last election, there was some really terrible things said about Hillary Clinton, and I think they're probably true. Silsby, her personal assistant, got arrested in Haiti while she was there with the Clintons for abducting 26 children. I mean, it's just fucking unreal. Yes, I mean, this is all in the news and shit. She's in prison right now. No. She got out because they hired a lawyer who was also somehow a convicted pedophile. I don't know how you can even be, to get her out, and they got her out. But I mean, no one can deny the fact that Silsby, the lady whose last name was Silsby, got busted and went by the Haitians for trying to abduct children out of there while she was with the Clintons. I mean, this is just incomprehensible. But before anyone tries to say, oh, those sick Democrats or those sick liberals or something like that, the Franklin scandal was something that went down, I think, in the 80s, where they were taking young boys to the White House when George Bush Sr. was there. And I mean, this
Yep.
blew up. It was in the newspapers and everything, And so,
I remember hearing about that with George Bush and the boys.
yeah, and there was a man from Nebraska who was a very big campaigner for the Republicans, and he was a black man. He was also a very talented, I think, gospel singer or something like that, and he was the one running this whole damn deal. And they put him in prison. there's always a fall guy, but if people just don't ask, well, what about Bush? I mean, what about him? They're taking them to his house, but everybody's just, just
He
scared,
should
really.
be what's that, the RICO statute, where you're guilty by association. So the Clintons should be guilty by that woman that trafficked 26 children, and George Bush Sr. should be held accountable because he's associated with the Franklin.
Yeah, it really should be, but it's just not. That's just not how it works. I mean, that we know now that the Clintons were running the biggest goddamn cocaine operation out of the governor's place or whatever in Arkansas. So these people are literally untouched by the law, so to speak.
That's so not fair.
Yeah, it's very unjust. What is the ascension? What is this thing that everyone's talking about, the ascension? What is it to you?
I don't know.
I don't either.
To be honest with you,
I don't either.
I've heard about it. I think aliens are supposed to spiritually ascend you to the mothership or something like that. I don't know. I've heard about ascension stuff. Is that what you mean when you sound like that?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think that anything that's good, and I'm not saying the ascension is good, but there's going to be a counterpart where they're trying to deceive you. I mean, there can, like, say that we started an organization tonight, that was doing some good for something somewhere, and it somehow became popular. It would only be a matter of time before we got infiltrated and everything like that. There can be nothing good, that doesn't get corrupted, at least on some level. But, Sister Tara believes in some type of ascension, and, everyone's got to admit there is a general type of waking up going on.
Oh, that. I'm sorry. Forgive me. I get confused because...
No, I think there's a bad ascension too. I think that there's just as much or more propaganda for, hey, let's all get in a UFO and, go make love to the aliens or whatever.
I agree with Tara. Yes, there's an awakening happening right now.
Right, there's so many names for it.
Yes,
it's hard to, and I don't have the ability to see these other dimensions and stuff like that. We hear Tara and KJ, talking about these other dimensions. Of course, they're seeing, things in these other dimensions. I don't understand that.
I try to stay away from it. It's confusing to me, and I struggle with enough things, so I just tend to.
Yeah, I do too. And there just even within this conspiracy genre, the whole, going to Mars and all this stuff. But apparently that's real. I mean, because you either in your body or in your astral body or some part of you went to Saturn, and had these indoctrination, and there are just too many reports with too many similarities, to discount this stuff. There's something going on.
Well, going to Mars is real. I believe in the secret space program, to be honest with you. So, my experience with Mars was we were in front of the Seagate. I think that's how we got there. And I've heard they have a jump room to Mars, but I liked Mars. I thought it was, I hated Saturn because of the reptilians and what was going on up there. But I liked Mars from my recalls of it. I know that people can reach their in their astral body, but we were sent there as teams of people. Like, I went up to Mars with David John Miracle and Aaron McCollum, so we actually physically went there. So, but I don't have all of the same experiences as everybody else. Like, I don't have the same spiritual gifts as Aaron KJ when it comes to other dimensions and whatnot. So
yeah, well, that's I'm really glad you elucidated on that point, because it's like for instance, the ancient Indians and people with spiritual knowledge, and for instance Rudolf Steiner, we have different bodies. We have etheric body, astral body, and all these different things. And so the question that's always been in my mind is, like, say for instance on this travel to Saturn or the travel to Mars. I mean, in other words, the astral body is just as real as any of your other bodies, even though we can't really detect it. But was it your physical body that went to Mars?
Yes.
Okay. Fascinating.
Yes.
Yeah,
because I've
otherwise
had
they
both
wouldn't need the
experience.
jump room and all this. They wouldn't need all these goddamn, jump rooms and stuff
Right,
if it was just, like a
right,
Aladdin and a magic lamp or something.
right. But we have that technology. I just believe that it's hidden from the mass general public.
Oh
But I
yeah.
believe that we have all of this technology available to us.
For sure. And just the idea of a secret space program, well, I mean, that's a no-brainer. I mean, anything having to do with space is going to be top secret. And so even if people don't believe in, some of these battles in outer space, no one can deny the fact of a secret space program. I mean, there's got to be one.
Right.
And one of I'm not sure if you knew about one of my kind of connections to these things, and I oh shoot, anyway, it doesn't matter. I just made this. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I hit this button. I'm just getting two pictures of you now instead of so I can't check my. Anyway, um, but my own personal connection to this, and that is my and maybe somehow why I'm involved in trying to discover these things is that my great uncle created NASA. He created the NSA. He created the CIA, the FBI, all of those things. He was my father's uncle, and he controlled every dime of the military defense budget for the United States of America for over 40 years. And
Wow.
none of this is top secret. It's all open record. He was a congressional leader. He was the one who with the tax dollars paid for the Manhattan Project, to make this atomic bomb and stuff. And so it really hits home for me. You know what I mean? Because I'm not throwing him or my family under the bus, but it's just hard, incomprehensible to imagine what type of knowledge he must have had of an insider's knowledge and how hard these decisions must have been to make, knowing what these things have become now, NASA and this NSA and all this shit. And so I'm not a super soldier or anything like that, but I feel like I've got some type of connection to all this. And there's also been weird things in my life.
Oh, absolutely.
Strange
Wow, that's
things.
incredible.
Yeah, it really is because, it's just like most people I don't know how the government works today, but I know how it worked back then in the 20th century. And believe it or not, yeah, one guy signed. He was in charge of all the money for Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. One man writes that check. Did back then. I don't think it works like that now. And so it's incomprehensible. Because we're kind of taught a different type of deal, and then just to wonder, oh my gosh, well, am I somehow, whatever, and then I have to look at the fact that I've had ideas in my head since I was a very young child, which are really too advanced. They're not too advanced, but that a child wouldn't really be able to come up with these ideas. And this is the 4 stages of my life that I knew. As a very young child, I knew I would be going to prison.
Oh, wow.
And that's just weird to know that. You know what I mean? To know that you're going to prison, even when you're a 5 or 6-year-old child. Not sharing this, of course, with anyone, but knowing that I had these 4 stages of my life, and it's played out almost exactly like that, and I'm in the 3rd stage right now. And so it's where did these, unless it's some type of morphogenetic field or something, how could I have known this? You know what I mean? That's the only type of prophecy or precognition that I've had. It's just about my own personal life.
I get a lot of that. Dreams that come true about my life where I go to sleep and I dream what's going to happen the next day and I wake up and it happens. That happens to me a lot. But another reason I live reclusive is because the more people I'm around, I start having dreams about them and their life, and sometimes that can be overwhelming.
I'll bet.
Especially that direction with too many people.
Too much information, right? Oh, so
Sorry?
that's one reason you live out in the boondocks is to kind of maybe have a little bit of isolation.
Yes.
Okay,
Keep my atmosphere quiet.
Right. So on the cool or whatever, basically what you're telling me is that you're gonna have some type of dream or something like that, and you're gonna get with me off list or whatever. In other words, maybe you know what I mean. In other words, it's just weird. Even this whole conversation is strange. Hey, let's talk about a couple of the things in your room. I see a planet behind you.
Oh, yes. Well, actually, that my friend made that for me. It's painted. Originally, I drew it's a drawing behind me of a yellow orange planet.
And but
Um,
before you say the name of it, tell me everything about it except for the name of that planet because I'm gonna take a guess.
I don't know the name of the planet.
Oh,
That's
okay.
the thing. Okay, see, I believe I remember the time from before I was born here on Earth, and that's where I came from. I was up there, and I thought I was with Yeshua, and it was just him and I on this planet. And then I was born here on Earth. I remember some of the other angels. I got to meet them, and there was other spiritual beings I had met, but now I see them here on Earth. They're humans. They were born as humans, but I remember the time before I was born, and I thought that was the planet that
So
I'm
have you had
from.
multiple lifetimes on the Earth?
No, I thought that this was just my only one.
This one that you're on right now.
That's what I thought, yes.
Well, I don't know.
That
I don't know. And I have always believed in multiple lives or reincarnation and stuff like this. And but it just has been only a belief, and really still is until about a year ago, when I had basically a Kundalini awakening, which is very weird, and not necessarily a good thing. Even Stuart Swerdlow speaks about a premature Kundalini awakening. And there was some artificial means that came about because of several things that were happening in my life about a year ago, and one of them was being under a doctor's care and enhancing myself physically. You know what I mean, right?
right. Okay.
With injections and stuff. And so that was all part of it. And then that was also when some people came into my life that it was just the whole thing was very strange.
Wow.
But since that time, I've had a number of people wanting me, and I'm not a bunch of people, maybe four or five, wanting me to remember past lives with them. And
Wow.
yeah, and I don't have any past life memories.
I don't.
I
I,
do. I remember rivers of blood. I mean, just up to your ankles. That's that's what I can remember. That's so
wow.
I don't know what the deal is, and I'm not gonna try to
Wow.
imagine anything else. I don't. I'm not too much of an empath. For some reason, if you consider a person like to be like a radio tower, like a transmission or receiving, I'm like I think I'm pretty strong on transmission. In other words, people can feel like when I'm upset or something like that. But I'm not a very good receiver or receptor. I just have to deal with the human, the mind and everything like that to try to
Right.
make my conclusions and stuff.
Right.
So I see.
Wow. Very interesting. Sorry.
What?
Sorry. Very interesting.
Yeah, I got to do an investigation this last weekend. I got to go up to Moab, Utah, to see the petroglyphs.
Oh wow. I'm jealous.
It was amazing, and I am the listeners, my viewers and stuff know, or the ones who follow me very much. I am in a secret society. This is a secret society that Max Spiers condemned, and we do get in black robes and do weird stuff. Nothing like weird, but like chanting and stuff like this. And I have been. This society. It's called the OTO, but they don't. advertise or promote themselves in any way. And then you find yourselves in these rituals, and it's a dramatic reenactment, is what most of these rituals are, with people dressed up like an Egyptian garb or something like that, or sometimes Middle Eastern stuff. And I just thought, this is so weird, But there was kind of unexplainable why this trip I made last weekend, and it was of a romantic interest to go see a lady. And I knew before I went that it just coincidentally she's a sister in the order. And then, did all her removing of her dead father stuff, and then in Utah also saw the petroglyphs and did stuff that applies to me, looking at these ancient, types of things. And these petroglyph drawings are something that they show on Ancient Aliens all the time. And I don't, Ancient Aliens, I've got a lot of mixed feelings about that. We can get in there later. But then I met a man who's a high priest who I stayed at his house and stuff like this. And he's in the order. And I had no idea that I was going to meet him. You know what I mean? And I saw some stuff and experienced some stuff that was, out of this world. And there was something they kind of wanted me to go along with and I didn't go along with it. It wasn't anything that can really, even if I told you about it, I will tell you about it. It was basically just watching a TV program or, some movie or something like this. This shit is so surrealistic. It's unfucking believable. You know what I mean? This is the first time I've met someone on the internet and then taken a plane to go meet somebody,
Wow.
And for reasons that I can't really explain, so I don't know what's going on with me, but one thing's for sure, I love the people. I love humanity, you know what I mean? I'm an absolute, warrior against anything that's like anti-human.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And no matter what, there's been, there was some rituals I was involved in Mexico a couple years ago that I've been somewhat condemned for because it was a blood sacrifice ritual. But I'm not gonna say it didn't involve a human being. I can tell you that there was no human beings were harmed, or it wasn't not a human sacrifice. But I got an inside seat and an inside look at what these working with one of the most powerful men in Mexico at this time, the sorcerer Enrique Berdon, and working with him. And to anyone who would condemn me for this, all I can say is, do you eat meat? When's the last time you ate a hamburger? Because that's an animal sacrifice right there. I mean, the goat that I personally killed, a large sized goat, had a much better life and was killed in a much more kinder way than whatever piece of chicken or hamburger that somebody might have eaten today. Because that's another thing I've realized is food that we eat. There's given the injections and hormones and stuff like this. But these animals are, like a pig, your bacon comes from. It has lived in not a cage, like a body restraint its whole life. I mean, it's known nothing but anguish and pain and sorrow and misery, and you're putting that into your body. I'm putting that into my body. I eat the same thing that y'all do from the grocery store or whatever. Now, I will try to eat range-free chickens, chickens that were, got to move around and stuff instead of, being in a cage their whole life. But look at all the pain that's put into these animals before we eat them. You know what I mean? Are you a vegetarian?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, then yeah. And so you can't, really condemn me for this animal sacrifice I've done because, and at the same time, these people have been doing these. These are ages-old rituals. It's shrouded in Christian type of stuff now with whatever goodness and Lucifer and all this stuff now. But these Indian people, these indigenous peoples have been doing this shit for thousands of years. And mankind has been doing this for thousands of years. And so I don't really find anything wrong with it. But then there's a line. There's a line in the sand. Why? And we hear this from the Bible. Giving their children to Moloch or whatever. Burning these. This human sacrifice, which is just reprehensible. You know what I mean? It's just it's ungodly, and it's just morally wrong. But is there's there's some kind of correlation. In other words, the blood. The blood has something to do with it. I don't understand. So it's been fascinating.
I guess that's the life force, and blood carries harmonics in it. So I guess it's very valuable.
Harmonics. Yeah,
Yeah.
you've really seized on something there. What do you know about harmonics, or has there been any music or anything have to do with any of these experiences or sounds?
No, just from my research and studies, what's in the blood and why it's considered, the life force and what's valuable about
You're not gonna fucking believe this, but as you were saying those words, I couldn't hear the sound of the whatever, but I mean, I was like, I could feel my blood. That's wild.
it, right?
And so they used to say that everything comes out of light, everything's light, but now they're kind of going back on that and saying everything's sound. In other words, that light actually comes from sound, and then so it makes us, and coincidentally enough, as if there were any coincidences. I got a college degree, and it's just a junior college degree, an associate's degree in sound technology. And I'm involved in music. I love music, and even the Bible tells us, that David, when he was serving King Saul, he was to soothe King Saul with his harp playing and stuff. And then even in the very beginning of the Bible, we find out that in the beginning was the Word, or God somehow spoke this world into existence.
Yeah.
It's hard to know what's going on.
It is. It is.
There's a light coming from your eyes. I mean, I'm not talking. There's a reflection of the light that's in your room, but I mean, there's an additional light that's coming from your eyes.
Okay.
Yeah, fucking kick ass. How are you feeling about how things are going right now between our conversation here?
Good. I like it. I just don't. Forgive me. I have been listening. So
Oh no, you've been talking. I've been at listen. We've got a basket. Yeah, maybe here in the last few minutes. Forgive me if I've been speaking
No,
too much.
not at all. It's fine by me. I like how the interview's going. Thank you so much.
Okay, kick ass. Well, let's explore this idea. Okay, we've been going for an hour and a half. Let's shut it down and take a break, and then maybe come back and talk for maybe another 20 or 30 more minutes, or if there or touch on anything that you want the viewers to know, and also maybe, do you know Sarah Adams?
We've met previously, yes.
Let me just tell you my take on her. I had a bad impression or whatever of her since almost the very beginning, until I saw some videos just a couple weeks ago where she was explaining some stuff, and I was like, oh my God. It was just like waves were rushing over me. In other words, she's for real. She is for real. Regardless of whether, she's being controlled, or there's people trying to control her, or whatever is going on, And I don't judge her in any way having to do with her relationships with Max Spiers, because I personally know how volatile, relationships between a man and woman can be. A person that I love, was hitting me and throwing shit at me just only a couple of days ago. You know what I mean? And so,
sadly, I never got to reach out to Max while he was alive. So I met Sarah briefly after his passing, but
where did you meet her at?
Prayers to all of them. I'm sorry.
Where did you meet her at?
Just online. We used to do Google Hangouts in the communities, but I don't hang out in the communities too much. So.
Yeah, me neither. It's just there's so much negativity and stuff. But let me tell you, KJ Scoops has got the coolest little. I don't want to.
She's cool.
I don't want to. Anyway, she knows how. Yeah, she knows how to Anyway, it's a small group, and there's a couple of I'm not gonna say questionable people. There's a couple of extreme people in there, but you got to have a whole mixture of everything.
Yeah, no, her groups are great. So there's a bunch of people I like from the groups and whatnot. Just, I'm still waking up and there's still a lot of research and studies that I have to go through. So I get a little tongue-tied. I just kind of sit back and listen or read what they talk about because they talk about things and then I go back and look them up and study things and investigate myself and broaden my own horizons. So.
Yeah, you can get a lot of information. Okay, well, how this idea just came to me. How about this? Okay, we shut it down right here, and then you and me, or after we've taken a small break or whatever, on the phone or through instant messenger or something like that, we discuss whether you would like to, continue the interview some more. I mean, we've definitely got enough for a full show easily, and so okay.
Well, if you think we have enough, then maybe we'll call it a night, and unless you want to keep going, but I'm tired. But I gotta sleep early. I'm a lady now.
Well, okay, so let's just we'll listen, and the audience may never find out because I would love to have you back on the show too.
I'd love to come back if you'd be willing to have me back.
Oh, I would love to. This is going to be my best show ever. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Ayin, for the opportunity and having me on your channel, and I really enjoyed listening to your stories. And
thank you. I enjoyed listening to yours, and they were the realism totally hit home with me.
Definitely, me too.
And some of it was scary, and but the people need to know about this fucking fucked up shit, that they're doing to kids and stuff.
Most definitely.
All right. Thanks, Holly.
Thank you so much, Ayin. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, talk to you soon.
Okay, sweet dreams.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Bye.